in high school.
Good morning and welcome. This is Ian and Peter at the Auto Hub Show, and we have three panelists. We may have a fourth. I know he was having some technical difficulties. That does happen sometimes. It looks like he's coming on. Oh, this is something else. So essentially, we're talking today about work-life balance, which is a topic that I never heard a lot growing up at all when I started working, and definitely didn't hear much of when I was in auto retail, but I'm sure it's more of a topic for different generations, and we have done shows on generations before. But I guess my question is, when we have a problem with turnover, which we know there's no issue at all in automotive, maybe it has something to do with not only compensation, but, how many hours people are expected to work in the industry. I know the turnover is higher for women than men. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe Erica, you can introduce yourself and speak to that and comment on the work-life balance piece, because that's what the show's about today.
Yeah, so hi everybody. I'm Erica Bruno, Senior Director of Key Accounts at Recall Masters. This is a topic that, for me, I take very seriously because women do defect faster, especially from retail automotive, even more so than the automotive industry in general, usually because something's out of whack, right? And this is something that, I grew up watching. My mom and my dad worked many, many hours in our family dealership. And I joke with people, I basically raised my younger sisters, right? Like my parents weren't around. If I knew what I knew today, that my mom was barely going to make it to 65, I would have encouraged her to push for more of a work-life balance within the dealership, not only for herself and my dad, but for all of the employees. Because as I've gone throughout my career, I have seen, like one dealer I worked with when I was with Mastermind, they had a BDC manager who had just had a baby, and they let her bring the baby and work with her two reps every day, all day, because childcare was too expensive. Now, again, that dealer could have then brought out a childcare policy, right, for their employees, but instead they said, hey, bring the baby here, bring your kids here, and they worked out a schedule that worked for her. And that's the type of flexibility that dealer gave to that person, where now she's not going to defect from it, or worse comes to worse, quit her job altogether, have no secondary income, and only rely on one person, one parent, right? And in today's world especially, that's really difficult to do, really difficult, let alone if you don't have kids and have a two income thing, right? And that's the part that frustrates me lately. It's like, oh, women don't want to have babies, this and that. No, I would love to have a baby right now, but is my career going to be able to sustain the projection that I've had? Probably not, right? And that's the type of thing that our generation is starting to look at and say, okay, I can either be a really great mom or I can be a really great professional, right? And you kind of have to choose, because unfortunately it's life at this point in time. And so I would encourage dealers to start to think about what areas of their dealership could maybe support a mom, or even worse, a single mom, right? Like someone who doesn't even have a safety net. How are the types of ways that you could build out a program or build out a role that not only could, again, maybe 10 to 4, right? While main daycare, that all of a sudden you've got someone who can do a lot of work in a short amount of time. And that's the other part, is most of them are 10 times more productive than some of the guys I've seen on the floor. And that's the part that irks me the most, is why would you not take 4 hours, right? And maybe you don't have to give them full benefits. You could work out a system where whatever it is that they need the most, whether it's pure income or benefits and a little bit of income, and work it out so that way you could have someone who could really make a huge impact on your team and on your organization, instead of just saying, oh, that's not going to work for us. No, that's not fair. Well, maybe it'll benefit both the men and the women if you could find some type of flexible schedule where all of a sudden, again, it doesn't have to be a woman, it could be a man. Hey, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I can work 5 hours, let's say, during the day. Great, while the kids are at school. Why would you not want to take someone like that who could produce something for you that could change your business? And that's where I would challenge dealers to really think of like, okay, what are the ways that maybe I'm not seeing something, right? And make it a strength of mine.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I know, Larry, you never have an issue with recruiting. What are you hearing as you recruit people about work-life balance? Like, do you hear anything about that, or do you get questions?
All the time. I encourage dealers, and I'm certainly not the first, to offer things like one Saturday off a month. There's so many things we can do that not only don't they cost us money, they make us money, because people that are happy, that are motivated, do better than people that aren't. The only thing I would talk about that may be a little bit different, because I like to be a little bit different, Ian, is another part, I think, of work-life balance is to find a way to be happy at work. Because if you're miserable at work and you go home miserable, that's going to bleed into your home life, and that's going to blow up your work-life balance. Eric, I always like to quote Thoreau, who said most men, and certainly most women, lead lives of quiet desperation. They get up in the morning and go, I got to go to work. This is going to suck. All day long, they're miserable, and they go home and rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. So I think the goal is to try to find a balance in what you do. You grew up in a dealership, so you know what I know, that all car salespeople talk about all day. It's not sex, it's not sports, it's that there's no business. And then when a car pulls up, three morons decide they're not a buyer, send the rookie out. Mm-hmm. But if you're excited by going to work, if you're excited by everybody you're going to meet, if you're excited the potential to have an unlimited income, right? What other job do you give yourself a raise? You don't have to go to your boss, you just do a little more effort. So I think if we can strive to find a way to be happy at work, we got a better shot of being happy when we get off of work. And as far as management, I'm not young. Ian's not young, no disrespect. When we got into the business, it was real simple. Where can you go to make the most money? That's not the major priority these days. It's how the work-life balance thing. So if you think about it, if you identify the issue, it shouldn't be that hard to fix the issue. You just need managers smart enough to say, I don't want anybody burned out. I want them happy. I want them so excited that they get the second Saturday off or the first Saturday off that their whole attitude changes. So that's all. I think it's got to be a must today. We're a lot more touchy-feely than we were in this business 50 years ago, and we got to move forward.
Fantastic. So, Joe, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I don't know if you guys can hear me.
You're good.
Crystal clear, Joe.
So as the trooper on the panel, tell us a little bit more about you and what you do and what you think on the work-life balance front. I mean, I know it's a topic. But
back in high school, I was one of the most popular guys in high school, but not because I was a chick magnet or a athlete. It's because I could fix everybody's car. And I went through college working on everything from cement mixers to large cranes. And once I got out of college, got recruited in and got involved with dealerships all around the country through service contracts. Then one day I decided I wanted to actually have an independent repair facility. So I did that for a while. And one of my dealer friends came to me and he said, they're going to put you little guys out of business. So you need to sell that and come to work for me. Long story short, I became a fixed ops manager in a dealership over parts, service, body shop, etc. When my store got bought by a large consolidator, my Ford rep came to me and said, you're always the one that goes to these 20 group meetings and parts and service clubs, and you have plenty of resumes, you're giving those out. Help us help others. And that's how I started it in 1998. So I've been managing many technicians just like everybody else in this industry has for years and years. Luckily, also, I've had the experience of some great dealers whereby they had variable fixed stops. They had fixed stops that had variable working deals. And one of the things that I found is that unless you have a dedicated team that knows they're going to work every Saturday or every Saturday, Sunday, whatever, when you start doing the switches off back and forth, it's really, really tough. They don't, they're not usually geared to want to go in for that every other Saturday or every third Saturday and so on. And luckily, one of the dealers that we had a shift where we had a night shift, and then those people came in on Saturday and did the Saturday shift. So all of our 5-day work week guys were Monday through Friday. They loved it. All the people that were the night shift and came in on Saturday, they always got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then they came in on Tuesday. So they had a 3-day work week. A 3-day weekend that was there. I had another dealership that I worked at that we did rotations. So every other month, you got 3-day work, 3-day holiday. And so there's a lot of things, and I talk with a lot of consultants who are setting these guys up sometimes for a 4-day work week where they work 10, 12 hours, and then the other shift comes in. So that's all from the fixed ops perspective. But it is important to have that life balance. And as I said in the last time that we all got together, this is not your father's workforce. And a lot of people are really concerned about, the work balance part. I never will forget one time I was in a restaurant and I heard these 2 young girls talking back and forth. And she said, my boss just doesn't get it. He wants me to be a manager, but I don't want to be a manager. I want that time off. I don't want to struggle like he does. So we have to be aware. Now there's exceptions to the rule. There's a lot of people who do want to, work as much as possible, or if there's opportunities, fine. But it's interesting how we're evolving in that. We also need to look at tire stores because they're mostly open 7 days a week. And once again, when you go into a tire store and you visit with those guys in the back, they're usually dedicated to a certain 5-day work week. So they don't mind the Saturdays and Sundays. It's harder though in our dealership environment.
Fantastic.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, no problem. Scott, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you think about work-life balance. Is that a better way to go?
Thanks, Ian. So, Scott Saxton. I help. There's a couple of hats that I wear with Sonic right now. Director of sales for the inside team, but also helping build out our distribution channel as we work with channel partners. So I've thought about this a lot over the last week because I'm at my age. I didn't want to come across as the old school, grind it out mentality. I was never the smartest guy at any place that I worked at, so I always had to outwork everybody to get ahead.
Yeah.
I've been working since I was 14 years old, like full time. I worked full time in high school, and I also, when I owned a business for 20 plus years with 15 employees, I always looked at things through a different lens than my employees did, because the business had to, I wanted high performance, and I realized, early on as a young business owner that I was never going to get the same drive out of all my employees. So the challenge that I want to put out there is it really work-life balance? Because when we use the word balance, we're referring to some kind of there's an equal weight. And so I think that balance is probably the wrong word to use. Maybe alignment is a better word to use, or work-life alignment, because like Joe mentioned earlier, you have people who want to work. I actually enjoy working. So for me to put in 50, 60 hours a week, it aligns with what I want. Now, my wife might argue with you that it doesn't align with the home life the way that she'd like it. And I think that a lot of people in business have that challenge. And Erica, you mentioned earlier about wanting to be a mother and stuff like that. Yeah, your priorities will change, obviously, when you have children. So there is an alignment change. So there's 2 lenses that I look at this through. The first lens is the employee responsibility. on how they define personal responsibilities and boundaries. That needs to be defined clearly. So Erica, to your point, when you become a mother, your priorities are going to change. So you have a responsibility as an employee to make sure that those are clearly defined and your leadership knows where they're at. Understand your current season of your life, like what's pushing you. Is it early on in your career? So again, going back to this, take the balance out of it and let's make it more in alignment. So there's the lens through the employee, then there's the second lens is the responsibility of the leadership. And I've dealt with this now as an employee with Sonic, and we've had leadership changes over the last 10 years. CEOs have changed, presidents have changed, my leadership have changed. I'm also a leader. So in my role as a leader, I'm responsible to make sure I understand what motivates each person individually. So I'm looking at it through the lens of the leader while also being an employee. And I don't manage everyone the same. I don't manage everyone with the same assumptions. I think that the goal that I have as a leader and my fiduciary responsibility to Sonic is to make sure that whatever I'm doing, the person, the role, and the leader align well enough that we can sustain some kind of high performance, because that's the hardest, that's the challenge, is how do we make high performance sustainable? Whether you're selling cars, you're working in the service drive, you're managing the service drive. So that I would say that's my biggest approach to it, is this two lens approach and looking at it as an alignment piece, not a balance piece, because again, balance implies that there's equal, it's
Right.
50-50, it's not 50-50, and it always depends on who it is and what they want out of the role.
Fantastic. Sandy, balance.
The yin and the yang. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Joe. How you doing? Hi, Larry. Erica. I'm so excited. Hi. And Peter and Scott. It's always so great to be here with you all, because it's always an interesting conversation. And so I'm Sandy Zannino, for anybody which I'm sure there's plenty of people who have no idea who I am. And I have just realized this year, actually, that in just a very short period of time, I will have been in this industry for 30 years, which kind of makes me go, holy schmoly. I do a couple of things. In the end, I am like a super connector. I often have conversations with people and I'm like, you need to know this person. So and I make those connections. And I've been working lately. I've done some pivoting in the last couple of years, right? Some of you know I am by profession, I'm an HR professional in the car business, which is hilarious sometimes. But I love it because I love all things people. And so I've been working with ACS Automotive, where what we do is connect dealers with technology that helps them achieve the business outcomes that they want to achieve in all areas. And I mean, I really love what we do anyway. So work-life balance. You know, I can't help but think about one of WOCAN's founders and something that she said, that I heard her say, and that people should not have to choose between work and family, or something like that, right? Like I'm paraphrasing what Erica Tiffany Wells said. And I think that that's really true. And because we shouldn't, I didn't, when I was very, very lucky in growing up in this industry, when I started a family, when I got pregnant, and at the same time, many of us seem to work harder, do more, right? So I was working full time, I was going to school full time, and I had a toddler, right? And some days I don't know how I did it, but I managed to do all of those things with the flexibility that my employer gave me, right? Like, okay, do some work from home, do things like that. But in thinking about this, it occurs to me that lots of times we try and figure out what they want, right? And Larry, you're right. The workforce is changing, right? Boomers are retiring, Gen Xers, I want to retire, I'm done, right? And the workforce is filling up. It will be set in less than 10 years, and now it's probably less than 9 years. The workforce is going to be 70% Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen Alpha that hasn't even hit. I mean, just think about that. So I think that this is an important conversation, maybe not necessarily about work-life balance. I think it's more important that we start surveying our people, talking to our people, and find out, what do they want? Like and a good example, and again, I mean, Erica happens to work for Walzer, but they do this really, really well. They have Sherry Schultz is the CHRO there, and if you know her, she's open about, how she does stuff. And they do a survey it's like a value survey for every single employee when they start, and they've benchmarked the entire staff, and they do a lot of things from that, right? And therefore they have more satisfied employees because they're pulling something from it. So that's all I'll say about that for now. Maybe it's work-life balance, maybe it isn't. Maybe we should find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't ignore the fact that the generational stuff is changing dramatically. I mean, people haven't even talked about Gen Alpha at all, really, or Beta, or whatever it might be. They're talking more about Millennials and Gen Z now. But I mean, obviously the baby boomers and Gen X won't be in the workforce forever. I mean, sooner or later they're going to want to retire, even if it may be challenging for them. What do you think, Peter? You want any comments on this?
Well, and I appreciate what Erica said and Sandy. And the biggest problem I think we have in any business today, because I talk to a lot of different business owners, you and I, we talk to different companies that are marketing to the auto industry every day. But the challenge everybody has is keeping employees. And back in the day, I remember working for a big dealership, and literally it was a revolving door. We would literally run 30 people a month through training. And out of those 30 people, they might keep 7, And the dealers, I think, for the future, and most businesses in general, are going to have to change the way they look at things, because the younger generation, what I'm finding is, and I'm not going to beat them up at all, but I will say that a lot of them don't want to work. Okay, they don't really, and God forbid you want to have them do any manual labor. That's why we're having trouble with technicians. But work-life balance is important, and it's an important buzzword for a lot of people, because we have to think about what we have to do to keep these employees. And Larry and I talk about this from time to time. It is much cheaper to keep an employee than to hire a new one. Okay, Larry's very expensive. That's why he's driving a Ferrari. Okay, not driving a Toyota. So, having that work-life balance is, you want to keep the employees longer, treat them better, but you have to do what Erica was talking about. Listen to what they need. She had some great points. I love what she was saying, because if you've got a single mother out there, and unfortunately we live in a world with a lot of single mothers, and you can help them, okay, and you can accommodate them and do what they need to make their life a little bit easier, whether it be providing them some insurance or giving them the hours to work that they need to work, you're going to have an employee that is, number one, loyal. And that is something that is missing in this world today. So I think work-life balance is a critical topic, because we need to treat our people better. We need to help them and understand what they need. It's not like the old days where, I'm just going to go hire some more people, because we don't have that luxury anymore.
Right.
Hey, Peter, let me jump in. And first of all, I got rid of the Ferrari. The ashtray was dirty, so I got a Lamborghini. Let's get this stuff right. Listen, we are as an industry, a wonderful industry. We've all made money off it. I love it. I love the people I've met through it. But our brains don't work. We don't treat our salespeople, our techs, certainly Joe will agree, like they're important, like they mean something, like we want them to stay long term. So there's no way they can translate that to the fact that we want customers to stay long term. In my book, Ian Knows It, In or More on Demons, I quoted myself. I said, they're not annoyances, they're annuities. So if you don't make the salesperson, the tech, the lot porter, the detailer, the title clerk, make them feel like they're an essential part of the business, that we appreciate you, that we need you, that we care about you, they're never going to do that to their customer. None of this is complicated. I jumped off the screen for a minute. I wasn't being rude. I just made a deal with another dealer. Now, if I would have called this guy 500 times, he would have never picked up the phone. But he called a friend of his and said, man, I need people. He said, call Feldman. He's crazy, but he's the best. Right on both counts. None of this is complicated. If you go to a restaurant and the manager comes out, if the server's nice, if the food's good, not only do you go back, tell all your friends. Somehow in our industry, we've forgotten that aspect, that we don't want to think about the deal. We want to make the deal so great that we're going to get all the deals that come off of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I see ads every single day on LinkedIn. I need this, I need that, I need this. This would be great. This would be wonderful. I need this. What if it's like, oh, well, here's how happy our staff are. You should come join our team. Yeah, let's interview Bob or Frank or Jane.
And I interrupted. That's because everybody talks about their culture.
Yeah.
But apparently, in modern dealership builds, Erica will understand this. They don't put one thing in. It's called a mirror. They don't look in the mirror and see what actually their culture is. They don't have a friend or a relative call the dealership and see how hard it is to get a service appointment or how hard it is to get to talk to somebody. You know, Ian has gotten me a ton of business. It's one of the reasons I love Ian. Okay, one of my favorite Canadians. Okay, but the bottom line is, all he tells people is, this guy will get the job done, and you're not going to believe this, but he answers his phone. Erica, you're smiling. I get people that call me and go, son of a gun, you answered your phone. I said, of course. Well, Ian told me that I didn't believe it. Now, why the hell should I get a medal for answering my phone? How far?
Larry, last month, I was on a call for 22 minutes waiting for a service manager. 22 minutes. And at that point, I just stubborn Portuguese Italian woman. I was like, I just want to see how long this is going to go. Right?
Well, let me ask you a question. I know of you. I wish I knew you better, and we're going to correct that in the future. But you're a smart lady. You're patient. You grew up. You're tolerant because you grew up in a family with business. How pissed off do you get when you're in a hurry and it takes 10 extra seconds for your computer to boot up? You like want to punch it.
Yeah.
Joe, I believe there's going to be a shooting one day at McDonald's because somebody in the drive-thru is too anxious to get their French fries.
Yeah.
We're in a hurry as a society. 22 minutes. You got to be out of your mind.
So how do you attract? So how do you attract? I know you spend a lot of time recruiting for dealers, and I know Joe hasn't talked in a while. But Joe, if you're a dealership, how do you attract talent? Like, how do you do that? What do you think?
When dealerships call me and say, Joe, I need such and such, how long will it take me to get that? My simple answer is how attractive the offer is will determine how quickly you'll fill it. And of course, I can give them parameters. It's not unusual for me to say, look, I have dealerships that are paying master techs $90 a flat rate hour. And on top of that, they're doing $20,000, $30,000 sign on, plus they'll house them for a while and so on. And of course, sometimes they'll just hang up the phone and like I'm on drugs. But the ones that don't believe I'm a meth addict will turn around and say, well, that's interesting. And I'll ask them about where their area is and what they're looking for. And I can give them some kind of idea, because the attractive of the offer is probably the most, compounding part of how quickly that they will fill. So perhaps that's an answer to the question on that.
And Joe, no drug dealer would keep you waiting if you had the money and you wanted drugs. No drug dealer, when you walked up to them, would say, do you have an appointment today?
Yeah. And, I know this is off the subject because we were talking about work balance. And once again, whenever I'm going through what they're looking for, and I'll say, do you have Saturdays? If so, how often? And so on. And if they say no, that's one of the biggest assets right off the bat. I said, well, we need in your recruiting offer to put that right up at the top. 5-day work week, no weekends, whatever the case is. So that's a big part. But the other thing that's kind of off the subject is you were talking about trying to get through to people. I tell dealers all the time, your AI systems on these phones and on these appointment systems are blowing people out left and right. It's just amazing. And I've been calling dealers on phones since 1998. And I can tell you that It used to be bad, and then it got really good, and now AI's in it, and it's worse than it was in 1998. So
Interesting.
And Ian, if I can jump on that topic, one of the challenges that I'm seeing, and Scott and I started working together a couple of years ago because I was working on a project where I was trying to focus on recruiting technicians. And Scott had developed this program for American Airlines where what they were doing for the military was, when you came out of the military, American Airlines would bring you in and basically give you tools. And I thought, what a great idea. Let's bring that to the car business. And I got together with Scott and Sonic Tools, we put together a program, and we went out and tried to share this with the dealers. We didn't sell one damn toolbox, not one single, because the program was, hey, you want to recruit the technicians, you get these technicians, say, look, you come to work for me, you're going to start out, and we're going to start you out, and we're going to give you a box. We're going to a couple $1,000 box, but you stay with us for 2 years, and that box is yours. Dealers could not get it in their head about the value of the technicians and how giving them an incentive to come on board, and you tie it to making a small investment. Larry, I got to ask you, Joe hit on it, and I'm sure you got some comments, but why are the dealers so reluctant to invest in technicians and bring people on and give them, like Joe, you mentioned, you start talking about some of these benefits like this, and they kind of hang up on you, think they're crazy. Technicians are one of our greatest assets, but they're not willing to invest and bring them in and develop. It boggles my mind.
It's because dealers do not appreciate, and I was a dealer, do not appreciate the importance of fixed operations. Why is the slant for advertising so much more for variable than for fixed? Why doesn't every damn dealer have a tire display? A note, Joe, you'll love this. I tell every salesperson I recruit, I'm all over the damn country. I don't care what else you do. You make sure you walk those people back to service and explain, these are the nice folks that are going to work on your car if I'm lucky enough they're in your business. Our tire prices and the oil changes are the same as anywhere else, but you never void your warranty because we're factory dealer authorized and we use factory parts. What's complicated about that? They're always, the stepchild is always fixed operations, which is insane because the manufacturers can really screw you up with their products not delivering them. But the thing you control is fixed operations. Don't forget, look, our federal government, I love the United States, but I'm a little concerned about our federal government all the time. But when COVID hit, the one thing they deemed essential was service. Not the prima donnas up in sales, service. So if the damn government, which almost never gets anything right, gets it right, why can't dealers get it right? It's because we look at it, it's just crazy that there's still a wall between fixed and variable. Joe, do you agree? I think I hit that on the head.
Yeah, and a lot of times because we've all also worked in the front, and we know how when somebody starts to make too much money, they give you the old deal of, Joe, come in, we got a new pay plan for you. And you go, oh God, you know what that means. But it's the same thing with technicians because, and this is a true story. I was recruiting for a dealership up in Montana, and there was a Ford technician that contacted me who was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he said, he says, I was born and raised here, but he says, I'm getting tired of the big city traffic, et cetera, and so on. And I always thought Montana. And so we started discussions, and he said, I just don't know if I can just really stand such a pay cut, because he says, and I'm going to send you my pay slip. And I actually saw it. By July last year, he had made $240,000. And I said, I'm so surprised that, first of all, your dealer has hasn't pulled you in. He goes, oh, he says, I get that all the time. I said, second of all, I said, has anybody talked to you, Brian, about that you should be putting that money in 401ks and and these investments and so on? He goes, I said, because 50% of it is getting taken by the government. He goes, Joe, I'm making so much money, I don't care. So there's a step that still has to be done. Not only, and I used to do this, I used to sit down with my technicians whenever I'd hear them say, Yeah, I'm looking at a new truck. I'd immediately go sit down with them and say, look, we've been doing real good for the past 3 or 4 months, but remember, this business goes up and goes down. And, no other service manager would talk with their people about that type of stuff. And that's important too. So that's a big retention part, is that, dealers, some of them, when they see somebody making that much money, it's like, how can I cut their pay and get into it? It's part of the business, unfortunately.
I have to play a quick message from our sponsors. Here we go.
If you look at the last 4 years again, we've answered 41 million phone calls for dealers over the last 4 years with our AI platform. We've also handled over 150 million text messages. And so when you look at just those raw numbers, that's a 4-to-1, 3.5, 4-to-1 text to phone call. So I don't know. Here's what I can tell you though. I believe that the customer wants to be met where they are presently. If that is text, voice, video call, if they want to be engaged and engaged instantly.
I'm Vince Delmonico, General Sales Manager with Cruise Ford Lincoln. Larry Feldman came out and did one of our training courses. Absolutely incredible. I sat through the course myself. The engagement that our salespeople gained from it, the excitement that he brings, it was a new way of looking at things that we're already doing and how we can improve them. Love it. It's literally the best thing since sliced bread.
My name's Fareed Ahmed. I'm the founder and CEO of DSMA. So why should you use DSMA to sell your most valuable asset? The answer is very simple. It's our unparalleled approach to our clients' needs and satisfaction. Remember, DSMA, we're real people doing real deals.
Meta, Instagram, social, and your team is still waiting for ups like it's 1999. Let's be honest. Your market isn't watching TV commercials. They're double tapping and engaging with your competitors on social media posts. People are shopping these days for cars and servicing their vehicles in between watching cat videos.
All righty. And I think you had a thought there, Sandy. Go ahead.
I do. I do. I have a couple of thoughts, right? I'm sitting and listening to everybody. And one thing, I love that we talk about service, right? And because in my, I spent just about 20 years in dealership. And I always felt like service didn't get the love that they need, right? Because anyway, for a lot of reasons. So I love talking about technicians and how much the service department just adds to the bottom line. I mean, I was taught that it was called fixed ops because it's the fixed money that you can get anyway. But when I think about attracting and retaining employees, there's a few things I think about. And the first thing is the employee value proposition. And it works for both of those things, right? And I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. And I've been talking about it for a while. I've got a slide, like I help dealers learn how to build that value proposition, right? And that's going to help you retain your current employees and attract the new ones. It's just like a value proposition for a product that you're selling to external customers, right? You give them what they need, you allay their fears, and give them what they want, right? All of the same thing. And and you figure out how to do that. The product is your dealership. If you're talking about retail, that's your product. And again, back to, you got to find out what it is they want. And I there's a thing, a kick, it's not really a kick, it's a passion really that I've been on for our industry lately, stemming from what I said earlier about the generations that are going to be making up our workforce. And because clearly if there were one answer or I had the answer, I'd be a gazillionaire because I would have fixed this problem that we never seem to stop having of high turnover. What sales is 70%, it's like 45 or 46% across the dealership. These days, women in our industry, women of color in our industry, women of color is at 6% and women stay at 20, right? We just don't move. The needle doesn't move. I think I know what the answer to that is, but we'll talk about it another time. So I think what we may need to start focusing on, having an EVP and also building from within, right? Like Larry might not love this whole idea because what we do is try and buy the experience, the talent, right? We try and buy it. I do work for controllers, and there's a dealer that I don't work with anymore because I can't sell them to a controller. I can't ethically say to this controller, leave where you are, because I always look for passive candidates when I'm looking. I can't say, leave where you are and come work here when it's a shit show. I can't do that, right? And I can't, and so we have to, reputation gets around. And, I'm looking at Scott, and I have a friend who just started working for Sonic not long ago. He's a GM, and he loves it, right? And the one thing I said, when he started there, I said, you know what? I've never heard anything bad about Sonic. Because word gets around, right?
Make sure you guys know there's Sonic Auto Group and there's Sonic Tools.
Which one are you? Are you Auto Group or are you Tools?
Sonic Tools.
Sonic Tools.
Oh, which is a really cool.
But we do work with Sonic Auto Group, so.
You have that, well, Sonic, and sorry about that. But the Sonic Tools is actually pretty cool because I did some work with you guys years ago. But I love your starter kit, right? Like you have this starter kit for technicians that all dealers should go and get and give this to their new technicians, right?
Well, I'd like to do a quick insert on what's saying.
So let me land the plane. One more thing, because I think that we should start from growing within. The other thing that we haven't done is do good PR for this industry. Young people are completely unaware of all the amazing and wonderful career paths that are within automotive, whether it is at an OEM, whether it's at a dealership, whether it's with a vendor, they don't know. And we need to start going to middle schools and really getting the word out.
And Robbie Villanova says, invest in your techs who have been with you. That will create retention. So not just new techs, but invest in the techs that are there. But go ahead, Joe, you had a comment?
On something that Sandy said, and I'm not going to disclose, obviously, which manufacturer it is. One day I got a phone call, and it was a manufacturer, and he said, I'm looking at your database, and you've got all these different technicians and so on. And I said, also, I said, there's like 500 of your manufacturer that have their resume out there. We could also have you contact those people to find out why they want their resume out there, because he was talking about, I need to have different sources to help my dealers and so on. And he said, Joe, I don't need that. I know our dealers treat them like shit. So let's go on to something else. And I said to myself, so in other words, they want to go try to find technicians from other manufacturers because the rest of the story.
So Erica, we're talking a little. Oh, Scott had some comment on the toolboxes. Go ahead, Scott.
No, actually I don't, but I do I got a couple bullet points on the topic, right, of this work-life balance, and some of the things, and when both Larry and Joe are talking on this, one of the things is a leader does not need to make the work easy. Like dealerships don't need to make the work easy. Work in general doesn't need to be easy, but they do need to make success sustainable. And one of the things that I think the leadership side misses a lot is that you can't motivate your employees and the people that work for you if you don't know what they value outside of work. So getting back to this alignment piece and this balance piece is like, if you truly invest into understanding what motivates your employees outside of work, it's amazing what little things you can do to make sure that they're doing those things. I had an employee work for me, a guy named Matt Yeager, who worked for us at Sonic. This is in Auburn, Alabama. And Matt, the only thing he cared about outside of work, besides his wife, was coaching his kids baseball. And so I made sure that I understood what that baseball schedule was like, so that I knew to expect to say, hey, listen, you're leaving early on Thursday, right? Don't you have to go out to Birmingham to coach? He's like, are you cool with that? I'm like, Matt, you're making your numbers. You're doing the things that I've asked you to do to help me look good as a director of sales. Go coach your kids' team. Go spend time with your boys. So you have to dig into your employees to make sure that you understand what motivates them outside of work before you can ever understand what that alignment work looks like, or that balance looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of tees up to a question, which is, is it about pay? Is it about pay plans? Is it about perks? I mean, I see this time of year all the time, the pictures of the dealer with the barbecue, like employee, whatever, barbecue, whatever they're doing. And it's like every year it's like, oh, we're getting them free lunch or whatever it is. But, that individual, especially people of different generations, may have a different point of view. But even in the same generation, I mean, what do you think, Erica?
So first off, I love literally the last 20 minutes of conversation that we just had, because it perfectly sums up everything that I truly do believe in, and that has been pushing me forward in my career and in my life, is that I was incredibly blessed to grow up in a situation that, again, if you included my grandfather, was over 50 years of family business. And then my mom was one of the first female Toyota dealer principals in the nation and first female Hyundai dealer on the East Coast. And the way she did her business, and again, 25 years is a long time, but even today, there's people who started with my grandfather who are still at that dealership, right? And I grew up in that environment because she wanted to be a nurse originally. She had what you would say a great bedside manner, right? It's like she was really intuitive and really attentive to individual people. And so, and my grandfather was a tech. My grandfather started as a body shop tech, right? So he really taught me not only how important fixed ops was, which is why I'm in the role that I'm in now, right? Because I think it's a passion of mine. But I got a chance to watch a dealership where they went to the local tech schools and brought a Prius, during one of the first years of the Prius, so the kids could learn about it. And they would donate cars, and they would invest in these technicians at a young age and help them buy the tools and help them do the things. And even, sales too, parts. I mean, my parents' Toyota store, the parts people have been there one has been there all of 25 years and a little bit more with my grandfather. The other one has been at least a good, probably 15 years at this point, the manager. Another one is pretty much right about there. I think it's been 12 years. And I know every single person by name. I know a majority of the people, even the newer ones. I'm like, hey, how you doing? Because when I walk in, that's my family legacy. And I take a lot of pride in that. And I think that's where certain generations maybe didn't feel comfortable enough to go and do that and meet the people and figure out who it is that are working for you. But being able to then get out of that and go out and see different stores, I joke, I got to see the good, bad, and the ugly, right? I've seen it all, because I've been over 44 states. I've been in hundreds of dealerships. And so for me, I'm a history and anthropology double major. And I focused in social anthropology, which was basically culture, right? Humans and hierarchies. Why are the people the way they are? And I was watching a documentary on FDR the other day, and someone quoted that, you have to be a dealer of hope. And I think that's what my parents and my grandfather did a really good job of, is giving people hope. Why are you here? What do you care about? Just like Scott was talking about, what matters, your family, the people, how you do what you do. And I've been asking a lot of dealers lately, and again, I don't mean to come off rude or bitchy in this, but it's would you work for you? Would you do business with you? Right? Would you go through your process? And if you wouldn't go through your process, it is your right and your responsibility as a leader to figure that out. That's your whole purpose, is to lead your team and to figure it out why you're doing what you're doing. And frankly, it's been one of my biggest frustrations, whether it's big groups or whatever, the consolidation of dealerships that we're seeing. No one seems to understand, okay, in rural Elkhart, Indiana, right? Like, how am I going to impact not only my people, right, that work within my operation, and it doesn't matter if it's a single point or a multi-group dealership. How am I going to help my people ensure that my community is cared for? And what does that mean? It doesn't mean all the fluffy, oh, cool, you've got some chocolate chips in your car at the end of a service. Okay, like that's cool too. But if all of a sudden I know that Jimmy, who's been a technician of mine for 10 plus years, has a softball team that his kid is on, not only is Jimmy going to go coach that softball team, during an hour early or whatever on a Tuesday, I'm going to say, what does your team need? Do they need uniforms? Do they need a sign or sponsorship? Do they need, a chance in the store so they could then see what the real world is like of business? Like, that's the type of stuff that I really grew up with, and I'm really, really fortunate now to say that I was really blessed with it, because I'll never forget this one day when I was working with a store in Vermont, and the GM comes to me, he's like, I'm looking for some really good people. I'd love to get some women in here. And I was like, well, I think you just need to start, posting and interviewing and see what happens and get to know the person, right? Like, and I shared how when I interviewed for Toyota, they were like, tell me one of the biggest struggles that you've had in the last year, and how did you overcome it, right? Like, what did you do personally or professionally? And at that time, I had just had gastric bypass surgery and lost over 100 pounds. And so I went back to school, totally changed, outside, right? But inside, I was still Erica. And I talked about the insane change of how people treated me and how I was shocked that these people just didn't see Erica anymore, right? Like, the person inside, they saw this totally different shell, but it didn't negate the fact that I was still the human that I was inside. And so, he had interviews and he started asking, like, what's the hardest thing you've ever overcome? And he hired a girl who literally had lost her brother 6 months before in a tragic car accident. And she was like, he was my best friend. I thought about going to college, but now I'm kind of at a point where I don't know if that's the path for me, right? Like, I feel like I need to be near my parents. It's been a really hard year. I just want someone to give me a chance to prove what I can do, right? Like, that's all she said. And he was like, I had to hire her on the spot. Like, that's the type of heart, that's the type of passion that I want. And that's the type of stuff that I would say, it might be fluffy, it might be soft. I'm telling you it's not. It's going to make the difference between you have a team that wants to follow you into war and a team that's just going to show up for a paycheck every single day. So I would say choose your battle.
Erica, you mentioned FDR. I'm also a historian. FDR sensed that if Churchill couldn't stop Hitler, nobody was going to stop Hitler. And he knew that we were isolationists at that point, and the country didn't want to be involved. They were still smarting from World War I. So he called it the arsenal of democracy. And he found a way to keep them rolling, which meant it was a little easier when we got bombed than we rolled in. But it comes back to the same thing. Thinking long-term, not short-term. If we think about what's going to happen in a week, in a month, in a year, it's amazing how, let me just say this real quickly and I'll get off.
Yeah.
When I train, I do mystery shop. And I send people out to say they're looking for a car for their sister who just had a baby. This guy my age, Joe Henry's age, it's our daughter, which makes us grandpa. All over the country, as soon as they hear it's not for them, they get stupid. Well, why is your sister here? What's her credit like? How to look online? These people are annuities. The amount of money a person can bring into your dealership from their business, from repeat, from referral, is astronomical. And yet we blow people off. Joe, I teach every candidate, hopefully they retain it, that it costs around $450 to get somebody to walk into a dealership. Act like it's your damn money. Because any salesman that put a $450 cash deposit down would not blow you off because their money.
And this has been another big discussion of mine of like, you do realize that if you had the type of business people want to do business with, you wouldn't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising. You would literally just do it all organic social media and have your people talking and have you talking and talking about what it's like when you walk through those doors, right? If you can bring an experience and a welcoming environment when you walk through those doors, I mean, I could
Right.
buy a dealership tomorrow with the amount
Right,
of
with
savings
just,
I have.
with just
Right?
putting a little money aside for a handsome trainer and recruiter from Philadelphia. Let's get that in there, Aaron.
Well, we're almost out of time. So, Joe, you haven't said anything in a while. Any final thoughts on work-life balance or finding staff or anything like that?
Well, finding staff's a different subject completely than work balance, but once again, more than anything else, when we talk with people and, there's shifts on Saturdays and extra days versus the dealership has a very progressive work schedule, such as, 4 days, 4-day work weeks, or, shifts that do that makes it more appealing to people in general that are out there. And that makes a difference.
Thanks very much. Scott.
This is my final thought. So on this work-life balance, burnout isn't caused by hard work alone. It's caused by hard work with no purpose, with no control, no recognition, and no recovery. People tend to not care if they have to work hard. I mean, hard work doesn't really kill anybody, but people do get burnout when there's no purpose, and that goes to some stuff that Eric has brought up and Larry and Sandy have brought up as well. No control, no recognition, and no recovery.
Thanks for that. Sandy?
So there's two thoughts. One, I would add training to what Scott just said, right? I would add training based on my daughter's first 3 months in the car industry. She wants to do a good job, but she's not receiving the training, the word tracks, in order to be able to succeed, but she's still doing it. The other thing I would say is that as the industry is filling up with new generations, to try and refrain from thinking things about those generations, right? Because I mean, they used to, there's an article called The Whiny Generation that's written about Gen X, right? Which, so we don't like the generation behind us because they're younger. So try and not do that and find out what they want and need.
Thanks very much. Peter, final thought to you. We're almost out of time anyway. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Great information. I really appreciate everybody sharing. And the key goes back to, it's really simple. If you treat your people well, love on your people, give them what they need, they're going to love back on you. And in turn, they're going to love on the customers. And it's going to be a win-win-win for everybody. Highly recommend you take the time to really look at your people, make sure they're doing what they need to be doing, and you're doing what you need to be doing to make sure they have what they need as far as tools and the training to be successful, and everyone wins.
Next week, we're talking about fleet business. So if you want to expand with fleet, that'll be on next Monday's show. And if you haven't already checked out, Peter and I will be at CX Auto in Detroit in September. So if you are looking to meet and people on the CX side, especially from the manufacturer and dealer side, that's going to be a great conference in Detroit in collaboration with Automotive News. So check it out on our website. And of course, we'll see you guys all next week. Have yourself a great week. Bye for now.
Adios, amigo.
Thank you for helping the industry get better today live.